On the first day of March, in the year 1896, the red soil of Adwa drank deeply from history. There, amidst Ethiopia's sacred highlands, a clash unfolded that would shake the pillars of empire, pitting an ancient African kingdom against the steel march of European conquest.
The future of our continent depends on the decision we make today. We must be bold. We must be ruthless.
In the dying embers of the 19th century, the scramble for Africa raged like wildfire. European powers, drunk on greed and pride, drew lines through living lands, slicing up a continent as if it were spoils of war. Among these imperial hunters stood Italy, young, restless, and yearning for its own dominion. Its gaze settled on Ethiopia, a land unbowed, a mountain fortress of faith and legacy, ruled by a monarch who bore the title Negusa Nagast, King of Kings. Italy saw conquest, but Ethiopia had long seen invasion and survived it. On May 2nd, 1889, the Treaty of Wuchale was signed between Emperor Menelik II and the Kingdom of Italy. To the Ethiopians, it was a gesture of diplomacy, a mutual recognition of sovereignty. But beneath the ink of two languages lay a trap. The Amharic version, Ethiopia's rightful tongue, offered Menelik the option to let Italy represent him in foreign affairs, if he so desires. But the Italian version, intentionally twisted, declared that Ethiopia must conduct all diplomacy through Rome. In the eyes of the Italians, Ethiopia had unknowingly become a protectorate. When Menelik II uncovered the deception, he rose, not with submission, but with thunder. He renounced the treaty, declared his nation free, and vowed never to yield to foreign chains. But Italy would not relent. Blinded by arrogance, it rejected Menelik's truth and chose the path of conquest, marching armies across deserts and mountains to bend Ethiopia by force. And so the drums of war echoed across the Horn of Africa. The lion had been provoked, and soon Adwa would roar. Before the clash at Adwa, there was the making of a monarch, a man of vision, fire, and unshakable resolve. The highlands had birthed a leader who would not bend to empire but forge one of his own. Born on August 17, 1844, in the town of Ankoba, he was named Sala Miriam, son of King Haile Melekot of Shiwa, a kingdom nestled in the heart of Ethiopia's central highlands. By 1865, with his father's passing, the young prince ascended the throne of Shewa. He took the name Menelik II, a name that would soon echo across continents. In his early years, Menelik carved his legacy with the sword and the scroll. He launched daring military campaigns, expanding Shewa's reach and forging unity from fractured provinces. By 1889, following the death of Emperor Johannes IV, Menelik claimed the imperial throne, uniting a vast and diverse Ethiopia under one crown, one flag, and one future. But he was more than a warlord. Menelik ushered in an age of reform and Ethiopian renaissance. He moved to abolish the slave trade, restructured imperial governance, and introduced a modern legal code inspired by Europe without compromising the soul of his nation. He built roads, railways, and bridges. He opened schools and clinics, and he filled his royal court with poets, scholars, and artists, a beacon of progress in an age of plunder. Yet just as Ethiopia began to bloom, storm clouds gathered on the horizon. Italy had not forgotten the treaty it once twisted. But now it wanted more than paper victories. It wanted land, power, and dominion. The Italian version of the Treaty of Wuchale aimed to do the unthinkable. Sever the province of Tigray, reduce Ethiopia to a colonial shell, and place its foreign affairs, army size, and economic destiny under Rome's control. Agricultural lands, mineral wealth, trade routes, all to be bound in foreign chains. Italy even claimed the right to dictate Ethiopia's education, taxation, and communication systems. A sovereign empire reduced to a pawn on the chessboard of imperial Europe. And so Italy moved. Citing paragraph 3 of Vucciale, Italian forces marched inland, occupying key strongholds, Halai, Saganeti, Adi Nefas, Adi Johannes, and tightening the noose. But Ethiopia would not kneel. Menelik II had studied his enemies, and soon he would summon an army that would make the mountains sing with thunder. The empire's lines had been crossed, its warnings ignored. The lion roared, but Rome did not flinch. And so, with swords drawn and treaties torn, Ethiopia and Italy marched toward their reckoning beneath the mountains of Adwa.
በእግዚአብሔርና በኢትዮጵያ ስም
Avanti soldati! Per il re e per l'Italia!
To war, my brothers! For God and for Ethiopia!
Avanti soldati! Per il re e per l'Italia!
Among the territories seized in Italy's long imperial crawl was Bahar Melash, a northern region they soon renamed Eritrea, drawing from the ancient Roman name Mare Erythraeum, the Red Sea. Though Menelik II never consented, Italian forces pressed further inland, encroaching beyond the Mereb Belessa boundary, drawing blood from the very soil they claimed. They first captured the vital city of Keren, then, a month later, they seized Asmara, the heart of Mereb Melash, and laid foundations for deeper conquest. Menelik's protest was immediate and unflinching. He penned a letter directly to Italian Prime Minister Francesco Crispi, demanding withdrawal and declaring that no foreign flag had the right to fly over Ethiopian land. But Crispi remained silent, and when diplomacy dies, war often speaks. On February 13, 1896, General Oreste Baratieri, now camped at Enticcio, sent his final word. He refused the terms laid out by Ethiopia. "Negotiations are at an end," he wrote. From that moment forward, each side would be free to act as it saw fit. It was a challenge thrown like a gauntlet across a battlefield not yet bloodied. Menelik picked it up without hesitation. The war Menelik had hoped to avoid was now at his doorstep. Italy summoned a man hardened by battle, raised on nationalism, sharpened by war, and cloaked in the pride of Europe's youngest empire. General Oreste Baratieri, born November 13, 1841, in the Alpine village of Condino, then under Austrian rule. From his youth, he dreamed of a united Italy. He fought in the wars of unification, rose swiftly through the ranks, and earned the trust of kings. By the 1890s, as Italy cast its gaze toward Africa, Baratieri became governor of Eritrea. His mission? Expand Italian dominion across the Horn, through diplomacy if possible, through force if necessary. And for this, he was ruthless enough to oblige. On March 1, 1896, his army advanced toward Adwa, a jewel of the Ethiopian highlands, a symbol of sovereignty, a strategic keystone. He moved with confidence, but not with clarity. He thought Ethiopia disunited. He thought her weak. What he found was a nation awakened, an emperor prepared, warriors ready to die for the mountains they called home. Italy came expecting division. It found a kingdom forged in steel and flame, led by a lion and guarded by a lioness. Confident of swift victory, Baratieri underestimated the resolve and might of the Ethiopian empire. But Emperor Menelik II was ready. From highlands to valleys, he sounded the war drums, summoning an army unlike any Africa had seen in living memory. From Shewa's plateaus, Tigray's cliffs, and the valleys of Oromo country, tens of thousands marched, not just with rifles and spears, but with the weight of their ancestors' pride, many banners. one cause: defend the crown, defend the cross, defend the land. And at Menelik's side stood an unshakable force, Empress Taytu Betul. Born in the historic Gondar region in the early 1850s, she came from the noble Betul lineage, renowned for political cunning and fierce loyalty to the empire. Taytu married Menelik in 1883, not as a passive consort, but as his sharpest mind and most trusted advisor. She navigated politics like a seasoned general and spoke with the authority of a ruler in her own right. She had helped shape the Treaty of Wuchale, and now she would help end the war it sparked. As the battle neared, Empress Taytu took position just behind the front lines, commanding logistics, directing reinforcements, and maintaining a calm iron will amidst the storm. This was not merely Menelik's war, it was hers too. Beneath the pale light of dawn, the mountains held their breath. The blood of nations would soon mix with dust, and Adwa would carve its name into the book of empires. Under the rising sun of March 1st, 1896, with pressure mounting from Rome, General Baratieri ordered his forces forward. Italy fielded 17,000 men, disciplined, well-armed, divided into 3 main columns. Their plan? A swift, surprise maneuver to scatter the Ethiopian army before it could properly form. But it was a plan built on illusion. As the Italians crept through the rugged terrain, the hills of Adwa answered first with silence and then with thunder. On March 1st, 1896, upon the red sands of Adwa, the Italian army came face to face with the mighty forces of Emperor Menelik. Before them stood a colossus of resistance, tens of thousands of Ethiopian warriors, their ranks gleaming in the morning sun, their war cries rising like smoke into the sky. From behind boulders, ridgelines, and riverbeds, they had not been caught off guard. They had been waiting. Still, Baratieri gave the order to attack. The Italian columns advanced. General Albertone's left column charged toward the Ethiopian flank, aiming for the high ground. General Arimondi pushed through the center. General Dabomida's right column sought to encircle and choke the Ethiopian defense, but the land itself betrayed them. The terrain was harsh, broken, unfamiliar. The Italians became bogged down, separated, disoriented, struggling to hold formation as Ethiopian warriors descended with fire in their eyes and steel in their hands. This was not a skirmish. This was Adwa. And the mountain was about to be painted with the story of a continent that refused to fall. The storm had broken, and it bore the face of Africa's fury. From every ridge and ravine, the mountains of Adwa roared a single truth: Ethiopia would not be conquered. Commanding nearly 100,000 warriors, Emperor Menelik II and Empress Taytu Betul had already read the enemy's hand. With brilliant foresight and flawless timing, Menelik ordered a massive counter-offensive, his generals moving like chess pieces across the highland board, executing a plan steeped in discipline and defiance. The Italians, scattered and misaligned, quickly lost their bearings. The very ground they sought to claim turned hostile beneath their boots. On the left, General Albertone's brigade met a wall of Ethiopian steel and fire. War cries split the air as warriors surged forward, forcing his men into retreat, drenched in confusion and blood. In the center, 2 titans, Ras Makonnen and Ras Mengesha Johannes, led a thunderous charge into Arimondi's line. With a devastating mix of traditional blades and imported rifles, they shattered the Italian corps, cutting through it like cloth. Everywhere the cry rose, Igzi abher yimesken. Thanks be to God. On horseback, Empress Taytu surveyed the field with the focus of a hawk. From the rear lines, she managed supply chains, issued orders, and tended to the wounded. Her presence burned like a beacon, driving warriors to fight not just with arms, but with purpose. It was her strategy, her resolve, that helped close the noose around the enemy. On the right, Dabomida's brigade struggled to hold formation. There, the seasoned warlord Ras Olye unleashed wave after wave of fury, forcing the Italians into retreat. Artillery units, low on ammunition, became sitting targets, gunners falling beside their cannons as Ethiopian fighters overran their positions. Desperate, Dabomida ordered a withdrawal, but it was far too late. His forces were cut off, surrounded, destroyed, many captured, others cut down in ravines slick with mud and blood. By midday, the Italian flanks had collapsed. Their center was in ruins, and their command had lost control. Baratieri, once so sure of victory, now stood in the shadow of disaster. He ordered a retreat, but it dissolved into chaos. Soldiers broke and ran, their formations lost to panic. Then came the final blow. The Ethiopians surged forward, a roaring wall of shields, sabers, rifles, and vengeance. The Italian army crumbled, their banners trampled into the dust of Adwa. The pursuit was merciless. Ethiopian horsemen and foot soldiers harried the fleeing columns, cutting them down, scattering them across the hills like leaves in a storm. By the time the sun dipped beneath the scarred hills of Adwa, history had been rewritten, not by colonizers, but by those they sought to erase. By early afternoon, the battle was over. The Ethiopian victory was absolute. The battlefield was strewn with the wreckage of ambition. Thousands of Italian soldiers lay dead, wounded, or taken prisoner. Imperial banners lay torn in the dust, rifles discarded, dreams of conquest dashed against the stones. Atop the high ground, beneath the gaze of God and country, Emperor Menelik II and Empress Taytu Betul stood side by side, not just as rulers, but as guardians of a people's soul. They had not only defended a nation, they had preserved a legacy. They had shattered the myth of European invincibility. General Baratieri, fleeing in disgrace, returned to Italy to face humiliation and fury. What had begun as an expedition of domination ended as one of disaster and shame. The Battle of Adwa was more than a military triumph. It was a revolution of spirit, a seismic rupture in the colonial illusion that Africans were meant to be ruled. It echoed across the continent, carried by whispers and songs, igniting fires in the hearts of those still under chains. It showed the world that Africa could rise, could fight, and could win. Even today, Adwa's name gleams like a crown above the mountains, a living testament to unity, to resilience, and to the unbreakable will of a people determined to be free. It is a story carved not in stone, but in memory. A story of warriors, a story of leadership, a story of courage so vast it stood against empire and endured. At Adwa, the sons and daughters of Ethiopia stood before the world and declared, "We are not yours to take. We are already whole."
Please subscribe to our channel.